First up, we have co-defensive coordinator ShaDon Brown and secondary coach. Questions for Coach Brown, Greg?
So ShaDon, just start. I mean, give us the 1,000-foot overview of the secondary. You're now in charge of all of it. So, what do you think of the group so far?
Well, I think we've got a lot of talent. Right now we're trying to find the best five guys that go out there regardless of position. So we're mixing and matching a little bit and playing guys at multiple spots, which allows them to show some of their versatility and their skill set. But it also gives us an idea of what we can and what we can't do. And that's really what we've tried to do through these first 5 practices. The thing that I do see is I see length, I see speed. We're much bigger outside at corner than we have been, and we've got much more depth. This is the first time since I've been here we've got a full room of corners in terms of the numbers. When I first got here in 2021, we had 9 scholarship DBs for 5 positions, and now we've got about 16 guys for 5 positions, which is what you want to have. And so we feel good about where we are right now, but we still got a long way to go before the 31st.
You've got a lot of new defensive backs that have played elsewhere, transfers. So how much does their experience carry over to you and help game experience, or the fact that they haven't played here a big detriment?
Well, I think the game experience helps anytime you've played. What you always want is, are they strong enough, big enough to play in this league? If they've been at a lower level, maybe a G5 or an FCS kid. But the game experience is invaluable. But the thing that's different between a transfer and a young player, a freshman, is just their overall play strength. Maybe not their weight room numbers, but their ability to play down the field versus a bigger, stronger wide receiver that may bump them and knock them around outside, or a big tight end in the slot. Like Cole Taylor does. If you're a younger player, it's really hard just because from a strength standpoint, not necessarily a skill standpoint. So that's where you see the difference is the transfer guys are a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and just more mature.
5 best players or best 5 group? I get how many? Let me flip that around. You're looking at the best 5 that play together. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, the best 5 that have the skill sets that fit what we need in those positions, meaning the 2 corners, the spear, and the 2 safeties. We're mixing and matching guys just to see what they can do. We played Aubrey today down at he played spear, but he also played back at safety some. So we're just moving guys around based on packages and based on what we're seeing from the offense. But it gives us a chance to create more depth and more value for each player, because we're seeing different things out of them in terms of having them play different spots.
What's a guy like Hollis giving you that you didn't have last year?
Yeah, so Garnett gives you a guy that's big on the outside. He's right at 6'2", 205 pounds. He doesn't look like a prototype corner that we've had here, but he's long, he can run, he can disrupt routes at the line of scrimmage. He gives us that big body where we can match up, where at times last year, even as good as Beanie was, where we would get pushed around a little bit, he's so big and strong, those plays don't happen. The other thing is he's physical in the run game. He's not afraid of contact, which is a big plus. Sometimes a long guy like that doesn't bend well enough to be able to tackle in space, and he's got contact courage, and so he'll add a ton to our secondary, and we can do some things differently and let him play by himself into the boundary and double some guys and do some different things that we haven't been able to do here.
Good with 50-50 ball in the air?
He's gotten better. In the spring, that was an area that I thought he struggled with, and one of the reasons why he came here. He saw the production of Beanie and what we do and how we teach it. And he had a big flash play today down the field where he played the ball in the deep part of the field, and that's what I've been challenging him with. If he can go do that consistently for us, he'll be probably a second-day draft choice. With his size and speed, he's going to be a 4-4 guy. But if he can play the ball in the deep part of the field consistently, which he hadn't done up to this point, but Beanie Bishop hadn't done it up to this point either, guys. So, I think it'll take some time, but I saw some flashes today of like aha moments where it's starting to click for him, and he's got elite skills and measurables.
When you talk about a guy like Hollis and even Jaheim Joseph, especially after what you just had with Beanie, is it hard to stop yourself when you're watching Beanie was at this point here, Beanie was at this point here? They're different players, as you mentioned.
I try to have a clean slate each year. You know, every team's different. Every players are different. You know, every group of players are different. And, you know, we draw on some things from Beanie, showing his film and things that he did, and try to use that as a teaching tool, but not necessarily from me from a coaching standpoint. I try to give everybody a clean slate just because if I do that, then it'll cloud my judgment in recruiting and going out and acquiring players. So I gotta have a clean slate, and you guys know as well as I do, every team's different, every mentality's different. You know, Beanie was an alpha male. Garnett is not that. Garnett is a quiet leader. So you're not going to hear him out there like you would hear Beanie Bishop. So they're two different personalities, so I can't treat them the same.
What do you do to teach the ball in the air and defending it, and how different was Beanie when he got here and when he left?
Well, I don't want to give away my secrets, first off. I'm sorry. I can't answer the first part of that question, but what I will say is the difference that what we teach and what most people teach is, you know, we teach to play through the receiver to the ball, where a lot of people try to teach the defensive backs to look back for the ball all the time. We teach body position when you can and when you cannot. And, you know, that's just been trial and error. I've been doing this now, coaching the secondary for 17 years. And I've had 18 NFL players in that time to play in the secondary. And I think it's just, you know, you go to Steelers practice, Beanie Bishop's breaking up passes. And it's just something that they got to get used to. And I always say this, they got to learn to play with their back to the basket. You know, some of you guys may be basketball guys. Y'all probably hear that out of basketball coaches, right? Got to be able to play with your back to the basket. And it's the same as a DB. The ball is coming behind you. If you always try to turn your body to the ball, now that's where we get pushed and nudged. And sometimes the guys that are paid to throw flags don't throw the flags on offense. They throw those on defense. So we try to play through the receiver a little bit more than other people, and it's worked for me over the years.
And as I said, how much different was Beanie when he got here and when he left?
Oh, gosh. Beanie couldn't play the ball in the air to save his life when he first got here. He had 10 pass breakups in 4 years, and he had 21 in one season. So his struggle was he was a guy that always wanted to try to go back to the ball and shoulder the ball, where he saw everything from the front, and you've got to be able to play the ball from up over the top and not always having your shoulders back to the ball. It's just like a wide receiver catching on the run. A receiver has to turn his pads all the way around every time. We'll break those up easily. So it's really the same. It's just the ball's coming at a different angle.
You mentioned Aubrey moving around. What do you like with his skill set at Spear? What makes him kind of a good fit there?
He's just slippery, man. He's got a knack for being slippery. I don't know what you call it. I don't want to give you a coach term, but he's just slippery. He slips and slides and dips underneath blocks, and he's just got a knack. He's what you call a savvy football player, and you know, he's really knowledgeable, so he understands schemes and he understands what he's about to get pre-snap. He's played a lot of football, but he's slippery. And believe it or not, you know, when he was in high school, when I was at a previous school, we recruited him in high school, and he played the position in high school, and he can pass rush. Like, he can dip and drive and get underneath guys. And I know Wyatt wouldn't want me to tell you guys this, but he had a rush in the spring where he beat Wyatt on an up and under, and he's really got a knack to be a 5'11", 205-pound kid. He can really bend and dip and pass rush, and he's a good blitzer. So those are things, to me, that allows us to do some different things with him that we maybe have not had in that position in the past.
The other side, Garnes. What are you seeing from Garnes?
Aiden Garnes is playing really well. I don't know if they've caught a ball on Aiden Garnes in through 5 practices. He's playing really well. He plays the ball in the deep part of the field extremely well, and that's an area where he's had to get better. At Duquesne, he could play with his eyes in the backfield and still be first-team all-league. Well, you can't do that at this level. And so he had to learn that in the spring. Another thing about him is, you know, when you look at his stature, he's 6 foot. He's 179 pounds. He was 163 when he arrived in January. But the thing that he's one of the strongest pound-for-pound guys in the DB room. So, you know, when you look at him, you think, oh, he's a slender-built, lean muscle mass kid. He's really strong, and he plays like it. And he's been outstanding. He's got a chance to be a plus player in this league.
Tempted to play him for free a little bit?
I'll wait to see on that. I'll defer on that, and I'll punt.
Coach, you mentioned Beanie. He's making a splash up there in the Latrobe. What do Steelers fans need to know about him that they might not be able to see on the field?
He's a hard worker. He's a Steeler. You know, he fits that blue collar, that mentality. He fits Mike Tomlin. He's a worker. He's going to always be doing more than what's required. And he's just a guy that has always overachieved. And that underdog mentality, like he embraces it. He loves that. He doesn't want to be on top. He always wants to be fighting from the bottom. And he'll make their 53, and he'll make plays for them. And it's a shame they didn't draft him, but that's okay. They'll have to pay him at some point.
A little bit more of a broader question here. Last year, much of the success. What do you guys have to do this year to kind of go beyond that?
Well, from a secondary standpoint, we got to eliminate some of the explosive plays. You know, there was times where we played really good defense, and then there was times where we gave up explosives in the pass game, which you can't do, you know, if you're going to win in the big games. And it was games that we didn't play as well. We gave those up. You know, you're gonna catch a ball down the field. There's good offenses in the Big 12, right? And there's good players, and there's going to be good throws and good catches at times. But what you can't do is you can't have the ones where a guy gets cut loose and you have a bust. And now that's an undefended play. To me, those are what I call layups, just like basketball. It's a layup. You can't give up layups. And we had some of those last year, and I think, you know, that's where we got to be better. I've seen better communication. That's what I've harped on all winter, is just trying to get the guys to communicate. You know, it's really cliche because I'm starting to get old. When I look in the mirror, I see gray hair. Some of you are already there, but you know, these kids, they're on their phones so much, and they communicate through their phones. They don't talk a whole lot. So you get a guy out there on the field, and he's got to communicate to multiple people on defense, and they're talking to each other like they're at church. And that wears me out. And so I try to get them to have a little bit of oomph in their voice instead of talking to each other like they're at church where they're whispering, because you got to think about it. They don't talk very much. And so I've had to get through to the guys that, hey, man, you got to talk. You got to be loud. You got to be forceful in your voice, because volume reflects confidence in what you're saying. So that's where we're trying to improve. If we improve in the communication aspect, then obviously the play will improve as well.
It's a guy like Anthony Wilson. I know when he came here, he was a hitter, a tackler. Where's his game advanced? Where's he improved?
Yeah, I think he's improved a ton throughout the winter and the spring, playing off coverage. You know, that was an area where he needed to improve his game. We've worked really hard on body positioning, and I think he's twitchier than he was last season. He's always been a strong, powerful built kid, but I think he's gotten better with just body position and being able to play in coverage. He had a nice play today on Cole Taylor. He's 5'9", Cole Taylor's 6'7". He had a nice play on defending the ball down the field against Cole. And last year, those plays weren't as frequent for him because of the anxiety that he would get when the ball's in the air down the field.
Positioning an angle for a guy that size is very important, isn't it?
It's very important because he doesn't have the length to make up for a misstep with his hands and arm length, right? So he's got to be really good with his feet and body position because of his leverage points. If there's a 6-foot receiver and he's 5'9", and if he gets contacted and knocked back on his heels and doesn't have good base when he gets in contact with a receiver, then it's going to be a struggle for him to play in coverage and get his feet underneath him. And so that's what we really worked on. He's really conscientious about it. Like every time he lines up, I can see that he's thinking about it. And, you know, you get what you emphasize. And I tell the guys that all the time. You know, if they think about the things that they need to get better at and they really focus in on them, when those plays arise, you'll be better at those techniques or those fundamentals just because it's important.
Was it mostly about
emphasis that the versatility, being able to swap guys between positions in the back end and then with the spear? Is there a danger in trying to do too much of that with too many guys? Like you mentioned, Aubrey is good moving downhill, but whoever's behind him might not be. So, just trying to get that balance where you're not teaching too many things.
Yeah, well, what I do is I try to give guys that can handle it multiple positions. If you can't handle it mentally, I'd never do that. That stunts the growth of a guy's development. So I never do that if a guy can't handle it mentally. So if a guy can master his position that he's playing, that's his primary position, then I feel like I can move him around to his secondary position. And I usually can tell as soon as I approach him about playing some other spots, I can tell if they have that kind of moment, I know they're not ready to do it. If the guy's like, yeah, I got you, coach, then I know, like I can move Anthony Wilson to Spear, I can move Aubrey back, I can move Jaheim Joseph to a different spot, I can move Aiden Garnes to different spots. Those guys can handle it mentally. So I don't give guys too much volume that can't handle it. Like Rodney Gallagher playing both sides of the ball. He can handle it. He can handle it mentally, so we're able to have a small package for him on the defensive side so that, he can have more reps and get a chance to use a different skill set. But if he couldn't handle it mentally, there's no way he could do it.
On Anthony Wilson, on his development, one of his first presses where he talked about idolizing Carl Joseph and what he was. Did you have to have any conversations about the difference of the game today and like reining him in, things like that? How has he developed in terms of his personality and how he's trying to be physical but stay within the rules of today?
Yeah, well, he's a physical player. I try not to take that away from him. The key is teaching him how to be physical. The contact points. We talk about when we tackle in the strike zone. We don't ever want to hit above the chest area in terms of contact. So just teaching him the rules of engagement will keep him from having the penalties and things like that. But I think what he's done is he's increased his skill set from being just a box safety that can drop into the box, knock the ball down, to now he feels comfortable and confident going outside of the box and playing in coverage. And so that's an area where he's made big strides since he's been here. And I think just his overall confidence level with being able to do those things has grown as well.
You had a couple of late transfers. I guess just what's kind of the early report on those guys, Dantes and Kikora?
Yeah, so Dantes Fagan came in this summer from UNC Charlotte. He's a corner, strong-built kid, can really run, plays the ball down the field really well, can play bump and run. Probably a little bit better than he plays off coverage right now just because he wasn't asked to play a lot of zone at his previous stop. So he's learning some new things, but he's also has physicality to his game, and he's not afraid of contact. And so he'll definitely have a role for us. And then Kikor came over from Jacksonville State. He's playing cat safety for us right now. He's a big, strong kid. He's 6 foot. He's about 200 to 205. He looks like a safety when he walks in, and he can really run as well. His deficiencies that we're working on is just playing the ball in the deep part of the field, just because it's been new and how we do it. He's got really good ball skills, but just playing the ball from safety as opposed to when he was at corner, because he played corner at Jacksonville State. And then he was moved to safety during different packages. So now he's a primary safety guy. He just hadn't done it as much. So, he's going to be a guy that's in the mix as well.
Is there any hesitancy to bring guys in after spring, just in terms of, getting them caught up?
Well, I'd love to have, if we bring high school players in, I'd love to have them all here in the spring. I really wish that they didn't have to go that spring semester if they could graduate early. Same with transfers. But, at the end of the day, we do so much in the summer. We got 16 OTA practices. I know y'all hear Coach Brown talk about those. Those are really it's only an hour long. We can't go against each other as far as offense, defense, but we're installing. We're putting in all of our techniques and things that they're going to need to know as far as their positions. So they're getting a lot in the summer. If we didn't have the OTAs, it would be really hard for a player coming in the summer, transfer or high school, to be able to integrate into it and be able to play live reps in fall camp and be able to execute at a high level.
One quick one here. Some of the younger guys, Zay Jennings, where are some of these guys at?
Yeah, so Zay's playing spear right now for us. Zay's a physical guy. Sometimes he doesn't go the right way, but one thing Zay Jennings is he always goes hard. If he makes a mistake, it's full speed. Those are old coach talk, right? But he lives it. If he makes a mistake, he goes full speed, and I don't know how or why, but the ball finds him. he just finds the football. And he's going to be a great playmaker. One of the other freshmen that's really flashed has been Keon Washington. He's a name that probably wasn't talked about, didn't have as much ink on the social media about him and all that stuff, but he's long, he can run, he's strong at the point of attack, and he's a guy that'll factor in at some point for us this season. I don't know if it'll be in the first one, but he'll be a factor for us in special teams early, and I can see him being a guy who can play for us down the road.
I was going to ask about Cross, too. Another guy that's newish, but
Yeah, Jason is playing safety right now. He's learning a ton about the position of how we've done it. You know, just coming from high school, playing safety, just backpedaling, looking at the quarterback is a little different than what you got to do at this level. So he's learning, got a great attitude. He's coming along from a mental standpoint, which is where I thought he had to make the biggest jump, just understanding how to take notes, how to practice, those things. He's doing much better after practice 5 than he did practice 1.
Coach, you guys finished right outside the top 25 last year. Is that something you use in the locker room kind of to fuel them, to motivate them? Maybe they play with a chip on their shoulder a little bit?
Sorry to correct you, but one of those polls we were 25. But I do get where you're at. Yes, I do. I think we don't get enough respect, but the fabric of this program is blue collar, underdog mentality. Prove it. As you know, you can write things on your computers and laptops and post things on social media, but nothing's true until you go put it on the field and prove it. And if we play the way we're supposed to play and do what we're supposed to do, all the rankings, they'll have no choice but to rank us where we deserve to be ranked. And you know, I just tell them to, you know, don't worry about what's written now. Let's worry about what's written as we get into November. You know, because we've got a long stretch, and you guys know this league. There's a lot of one-score games that happen in this league, and anybody can beat anybody. And we just got to worry about the main thing, 1 week at a time, and just do our job, and that's get the ball back to the offense, because we're explosive on offense and we'll score. But we just got to do our job, and we'll be fine.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
All righty. Yep. Thank you, guys.